So Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis has an official release date for September 7th, 2023. I was lucky enough to be part of the closed beta test, so I wanted to give some of my first thoughts and impressions and tell you why it's got me stoked on gaming. So a few weeks ago, I got to try FF7 Ever Crisis in the closed beta test, and I'm happy to report that it's pretty good. First, the big question on everyone's mind. Does this feel like FF7? Is this a joyless cash grab, or is there something good to be had here? I'm happy to say yes, this does feel like FF7. Looking at the graphics and the music, immediately upon loading the game, you get to hear that beautiful Final Fantasy VII music that we all know and love, but rearranged and in a higher definition similar to FF7 Remake. Graphically, what I love about this game is they've kept the aesthetic of the original Final Fantasy VII with the low polygon sprites, but gave them kind of an HD facelift that really captures the spirit of FF7 but brings it into the modern day. And I think just from a visual and a musical standpoint, this game really not just tugs at the nostalgia, but feels like Final Fantasy VII. From a story perspective, there's a lot to be loved here. I can see where FF7 purists are going to be a little upset with the way they've chosen to do the story, but my opinion always has been if you want to play the original Final Fantasy VII, it is very easy to obtain in the modern age. As for this story, they've watered it down a little bit. You can tell there are a couple of conversations that have been cut out that may not necessarily be pertinent to the story, and the levels are a lot shorter. For example, the initial reactor mission in FF7 takes something to the tune of 30 minutes to an hour. In this, it took about 20 minutes because they watered down the level design and they sped up a few things. I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it actually makes the story a bit more accessible and a bit quicker to get through. Now, what is odd though, while they've chosen to water down the story in some places, they've actually added extra missions that were not in the original FF7. However, these missions tend to be a little more battle-oriented and give you a little bit of backstory to characters that may not have been included in the original game, and overall, I think it's a great addition. The other thing that's interesting about Ever Crisis in terms of story is it is going to cover all the games of the FF7 compilation, including stories we have never seen before with the new First Soldier story. I got to play a little bit of the First Soldier story in the closed beta test, and I have to say, I'm actually more excited about it than I thought I would be. I played the First Soldier game that came out on mobile a couple years ago, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't see how they were going to make a story out of it. After playing the little bit I got to in the Ever Crisis closed beta, I'm actually excited to learn more about these characters. I think that they're pretty cool. I like their weapons. I like this idea of they're the founding members of Soldier, and I think it's going to be a fun thing that a lot of FF7 fans are going to get excited about. Moving forward to the actual game itself, the gameplay and the UI. Now, it is a active time battle style game, similar to the original FF7, but it's been sped up. Your abilities slowly charge through battle, and then you can use them while your characters are doing auto normal attacks. Similar to the FF7 remake system, but in a more classical Final Fantasy, you stand on one side of the line, the enemy stands on the other side of the line. There are great auto battle options for people who aren't necessarily here for the battle system, but more here for the story. It's easy to toggle them on and off during gameplay. So I had some small battles that I just kind of wanted to rush through, but when I got to bosses, I was able to shut that off and slow down and play the battle the way I wanted to and kind of enjoy that. In terms of the UI, I think the UI is fairly well designed. Some things were a little small and hard to navigate. However, they did address this in their notes from the survey from the closed beta test that they are working to optimize this for the official release. So they heard our complaints on that and they're going to make it better. In terms of the different ways you can play the game, if you are here just for story, there is a story mode that it gives you auto parties and you don't really have to participate in any of the gacha elements of the game, and you can just experience the story of FF7, which I think is an absolute win. For people who do enjoy those gacha elements and do enjoy kind of the challenge and pushing themselves and optimization and things, there are several challenge modes of the game, whether it's kind of a long survival mode or a boss rush mode or a dungeon mode. There seems to be a lot of different options to kind of test your characters and test your scores and things like that. I didn't get to try all of them because the closed beta test was unfortunately too short for what my time schedule had, but what I did try, I enjoyed. And last but not least, I want to talk about the gacha system. Obviously, this is a gacha game. I know a lot of people are going to be upset with that. I personally, I've played several gacha games. I consider gacha systems something to be tolerated when the game's good, not necessarily something to be celebrated, but we're going to talk about it. The first thing I'll say is Square Enix, in my opinion, doesn't have a great history with gacha mechanics. I feel like they're often too complicated in their games. I'm happy to report that FF7 Ever Crisis has a much simpler gacha system than what I've seen in the past from Square Enix. So the first thing I will say is that characters are not locked behind the gacha system, which I'm super stoked for. Normally, this is where people spend a ton of money, is trying to get the characters that they want to play with. You get the characters from doing the story of the game. In the gacha system, new outfits are functionally characters. In the closed beta test, the first outfit we got to see was a samurai outfit for Cloud. The core of the gacha seems to be really tied into weapons, though. Each character can equip 2 weapons. Your weapons will affect a lot of your abilities in combat and your stats. They've also set up the gacha system in such a way that if you get a lot of the same rarity, you can upgrade that and get it to 5-star equivalency, which I think is a great idea. It also has the stamp card system, which is basically a guarantee system, and anytime a gacha game has a guarantee system, I am on board with that. So, final thoughts. Is FF7 Ever Crisis worth playing? My answer is yes. I think it is a true FF7 experience. I think there's something for everyone, whether you want to be casual or you want to be hardcore about this game. I think the story is going to be phenomenal and a great jumping in point to the Final Fantasy franchise. I also think it's going to be very accessible because it's a free-to-play option that you can play on your phone. It runs really well. Square Enix seems to have learned from a lot of mistakes in past mobile games that they have released, and they seem to have finely tuned this one to be a fun experience, and they seem to be willing to further fine-tune it based on the results from the closed beta survey. It comes out September 7th, and I'm excited to see it go to a wider audience. I'm going to be playing it. If you end up playing it, I hope you enjoy it and it's got you stoked on gaming. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe, and as always, much love.